Chapter 17. Rising Threats. Somewhere inside an F-rank dungeon, a group of 6 adventurers found themselves locked in a fierce battle against a horde of monsters. The dark, damp walls of the dungeon reverberated with the sounds of clashing weapons and monstrous roars. In the thick of the action, strategic formations were employed to gain the upper hand over their relentless foes. At the front of the group stood Gareth Orshine, a master warrior whose presence bolstered the group's defenses. He swung his massive battle hammer with a fierce determination, smashing through any goblin that dared come close. His giant shield deflected incoming attacks, creating a barrier that protected his comrades. "Hold your ground, Gareth. We need to keep the line intact," commanded Timothy El Vantino, the master swordsman leading the team. "Leave it to me," Gareth replied, his voice steady and confident. He shouted a spell that enhanced his defense and increased his stamina, his body glowing with a faint, magical aura. Behind Gareth, Jason Arlo, a dual master, moved with deadly grace, his twin daggers flashing as he dealt swift death to any monster that slipped past the front line. On the other side, Timothy himself wielded his sword with expert precision, cutting down stragglers with ease. "Jason, stay sharp. Don't let any of them through," Timothy called out, his eyes never leaving the battle. "I've got it covered," Jason responded, a smirk on his face as he effortlessly dispatched another goblin. Cecilia Legrandias, the team's mage, stood slightly back, her hands weaving intricate patterns in the air as she cast her spells. She began with support magic, boosting her teammates' attributes and enhancing their magic resistance. Then, with a flick of her wrist, she launched a series of fireballs at the fleeing goblins, incinerating them in bursts of flame. "Fireball," Cecilia intoned, her voice ringing clear as a blazing orb shot from her hands, engulfing a group of goblins in fire. Sam Rishoft, the trainee of the group, stood beside Cecilia, watching the battle unfold with wide eyes. This was his first real dungeon crawl, and the intensity of the fight both exhilarated and terrified him. "Don't worry, kid," said Theodore Laborja, the team's druid, with a reassuring smile. "This will be over soon. Just prepare to collect the monster cores." As the battle raged on, Theodore began his transformation. His body elongated, muscles bulging and bones shifting until he stood as a fearsome werebeast. In this form, he reveled in the chaos of battle, his claws slicing through goblins with ease. "Time to have some fun," Theodore roared, charging at a group of goblins. His claws tore through their bodies like they were made of paper, leaving a trail of carnage in his wake. The rest of the team couldn't help but marvel at Theodore's ferocity. Even in the heat of battle, they felt a twinge of pity for the monsters that faced his wrath. Within minutes, the last of the goblins lay defeated, their lifeless bodies scattered across the dungeon floor. "Good work, everyone," Timothy said, sheathing his sword. "Take a moment to catch your breath." While the team took a small break, Sam set to work collecting the monster cores and any valuables they could find. He moved quickly, his hands shaking slightly as he harvested the glowing orbs from the fallen goblins. "We did it," Sam muttered to himself, a mixture of relief and pride in his voice. "We really did it." As the team regrouped, Timothy clapped Gareth on the back. "You did great out there, Gareth. We couldn't have held the line without you." "Thanks, Tim," Gareth replied, wiping the sweat from his brow. "But it was a team effort. Everyone did their part." Cecilia smiled, casting a healing spell over the group to mend any injuries they had sustained. "Let's not get too comfortable. We've still got more of this dungeon to explore." Theodore, now back in his human form, chuckled. "I don't know about you, but I'm ready for the next wave. This dungeon hasn't seen the last of us." With their spirits lifted and their resolve strengthened, the adventurers prepared to delve deeper into the dungeon, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Back in Aethenor, within the heart of the Adventurers Guild main office, Guild Master Roland Silverhand sat at his grand oak desk, meticulously reviewing a stack of guild documents. His silver hair and rugged appearance spoke of countless battles and years of leadership. The room was filled with the faint scent of parchment and ink, a testament to the guild's extensive records and history. A soft knock on the door broke the silence. Roland looked up as his secretary, Melissa, entered. She was a fine woman in her mid-30s, known for her efficiency and keen intellect. She carried a bundle of reports, her expression serious. "Pardon my intrusion, Guildmaster," Melissa began, her tone respectful yet urgent. "I have the report on the F-rank dungeon that was discovered recently." The adventurers who took the mission consisted of a mix of D and E rank adventurers. But later on, it showed symptoms of abnormality. The energy being released from the dungeon is now reaching C rank. I'm afraid their chances of clearing the dungeon are close to impossible. Roland's face turned grim as he absorbed the information. This was the second incident of its kind. First, it was the dungeon discovered by the surface dwellers. From Ryodan's report, that too was an abnormal dungeon. After the surface dwellers exited the dungeon, the energy levels had spiked unexpectedly. "This is troubling news, Melissa," Roland said, leaning back in his chair. "2 incidents in such a short time. There's something more at play here." Melissa nodded, her brow furrowed. "Indeed, Guild Master. The patterns are too similar to be a coincidence. If lower-ranked dungeons can escalate this quickly, it puts our adventurers at great risk." Roland drummed his fingers on the desk, deep in thought. "We can't afford to send just any adventurers, especially if these dungeons are prone to sudden rank changes. We need to understand the cause of these abnormalities. Should I contact one of the S-rank adventurers within Laurentia?" Melissa suggested, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Yes," Roland agreed. "Reach out to them immediately. We need their expertise to investigate these anomalies. We must find out why these changes are happening and prevent further incidents." Melissa gave a short bow. "I will handle it right away, Guildmaster." As she turned to leave, Roland stopped her. "Melissa, who among the S ranks is currently available in Laurentia?" "Sir, we have 2 S ranks currently within the city. There's Azura Nightshade, the Shadowblade, and Gideon Stormbreaker, the Thunder Knight," Melissa replied. "Contact both of them," Roland instructed. "We need all the help we can get. This situation could escalate beyond our control if we don't act swiftly." "Understood, Guild Master," Melissa said, her voice firm. She exited the office with purposeful strides, leaving Roland to his thoughts. Roland leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. The weight of the recent events pressed heavily on his shoulders. If these dungeon anomalies continued, they could spell disaster for Laurentia. The guild needed to get to the bottom of this mystery before it was too late. Chapter 18. Dungeon Anomaly. Timothy and his team pressed deeper into the dungeon, the air growing thicker with each step. The walls seemed to close in, and the flickering torchlight cast eerie shadows that danced menacingly. The more they progressed, the harder it became to cope with the increasing strength of the monsters. Something was amiss. "Hold up, everyone," Timothy commanded, raising his hand. They had just emerged from a grueling battle, sweat and blood marking their efforts. The monsters were becoming increasingly difficult to defeat, and their level seemed far beyond what an F-rank dungeon should contain. Breathing heavily, Timothy gathered his thoughts. "This isn't right," he said, his voice strained but determined. "An F-rank dungeon shouldn't be this difficult, especially for a team of D and E-rank adventurers. But these monsters, they're getting stronger." Gareth, the group's master warrior, leaned on his massive battle hammer, his shield resting beside him. "I only have a few potions left," he admitted, his face etched with concern. "If we're struggling this much already, how are we supposed to face the dungeon boss? We're not even close yet, and we're running out of mana potions." Cecilia, the mage, wiped the sweat from her brow. "Something is strange with this dungeon," she said, her eyes scanning their surroundings warily. Timothy nodded, his mind racing. "I agree. It feels like the dungeon's difficulty level has spiked somehow. I don't know the reason, but we can't go on like this. We need to conserve our strength and be ready for any unforeseen dangers. Stay on guard at all times." Jason, the duel master, spoke up, his usually confident demeanor now tinged with unease. "Timothy, what do you think is causing this? Dungeons don't just change rank like this." Timothy sighed, the weight of leadership heavy on his shoulders. "I wish I knew, Jason, but something is definitely off. We need to be cautious. Let's rest for a bit and gather our strength." Theodore, in his werebeast form, reverted to his human state, breathing heavily. "This isn't like any dungeon I've ever been in. We need to be ready for anything." As the team settled down to rest, a sense of unease hung in the air. The walls seemed to pulse with a sinister energy, and the usual ambient noise of the dungeon felt more oppressive than ever. Meanwhile, back in Aethenor, the guild master Roland Silverhand was pacing his office. His secretary Melissa, had just delivered the troubling news. The energy levels of the F-rank dungeon had inexplicably risen to B rank, endangering the adventurers within. "We can't delay any longer," Roland said, his tone urgent. "Melissa, have you contacted the S-rank adventurers?" "Yes, Guild Master," Melissa replied. "Both Gideon Stormbreaker and Azura Nightshade have been informed. They are preparing to leave immediately." Roland nodded, a glimmer of relief in his eyes. "Good. We need their expertise. This anomaly is unlike anything we've seen before, and our adventurers' lives are at stake." As the sun dipped below the horizon, two figures stood at the edge of Laurentia, ready to embark on their mission. Gideon Stormbreaker, a towering figure clad in gleaming armor, his warhammer slung across his back, exuded an aura of unyielding strength. Beside him, Azura Nightshade, the dark elf known as the Shadowblade, was a stark contrast with her lithe form and dark, elegant attire. Her twin daggers glinted ominously in the fading light. "This isn't just about clearing a dungeon," Gideon said, his deep voice resonating with resolve. "We need to find out what's causing these anomalies and put an end to it." Azura nodded, her sharp eyes scanning the path ahead. "Agreed. Whatever it is, it's putting our people in danger. We must be prepared for anything." With a final look towards the city, the two S-rank adventurers set off on their journey, their destination the dungeon where Timothy and his team were fighting for their lives. The fate of many rested on their shoulders, as they raced against time to uncover the mystery behind the dungeon anomalies. Deep within the dungeon, the cacophony of battle echoed through the dark halls. The clash of swords, the boom of magic explosions, the shouts of determination, and the roars of monstrous beasts filled the air. Timothy's group faced an overwhelming horde of goblins mounted on wild boars, hulking hobgoblins, and towering ogres. Gareth, the stalwart defender, stood at the forefront, his armor shattered and his body covered in wounds. Despite his injuries, he held his ground, blocking the relentless onslaught of the monsters. Beside him, Timothy and Jason fought valiantly, their breaths coming in ragged gasps as they neared their limits. "Keep pushing them back!" Timothy shouted, slashing at a goblin rider that had broken through their line. Cecilia, standing at the rear, unleashed a torrent of elemental magic at the enemy, her hands glowing with arcane power. Her spells struck true, but the sheer number of foes seemed endless. Theodore, in his werebeast form, battled the hobgoblins and ogres, his claws tearing through flesh. Despite his strength, he struggled to maintain his mana, his summoned familiars flickering as he fought to keep them in the physical realm. Amidst the chaos, Sam stood paralyzed, watching his friends fight for their lives. He felt a deep sense of helplessness and guilt. His eyes darted around the battlefield, trying to find a way to help. Suddenly, Jason was thrown through the air, landing hard at Sam's feet. A deep gash across his chest poured blood. "Jason!" Sam screamed, dropping to his knees beside his fallen comrade. The formation crumbled as more monsters surged through the gap left by Jason's fall. Timothy's heart pounded as he saw their defenses falter. "Gareth, Theodore, pull back. Cecilia, form a barrier around us." Cecilia, her face pale and strained, drank her last mana potion and erected a shimmering barrier around the group. Her exhaustion was palpable as she channeled the last of her energy into maintaining the protective shield. Sam fumbled for a healing potion and poured it over Jason's wound, watching anxiously as it began to heal. The group regrouped within the barrier, their faces etched with fatigue and desperation. Timothy addressed them, his voice firm despite the dire situation. "Guys, I know what you're thinking. That we aren't going to make it. But please trust in me and hold on. The way this dungeon changed abnormally, I bet the guild has already found out. They must have sent reinforcements to investigate. We just need to wait and hold on until they come." His words sparked a glimmer of hope in their eyes. Timothy drew his sword again, his resolve unwavering. They stood together, ready to face the monsters one last time, their hopes pinned on the arrival of aid. The barrier shuddered under the relentless assault of the monsters. Cecilia's strength waned, and cracks began to appear in the magical shield. Just as it seemed like all hope was lost, a brilliant flash of light erupted at the entrance of the chamber. Gideon Stormbreaker, a towering figure in gleaming armor, charged forward with his warhammer, smashing through the ranks of goblins with ease. Beside him, Azura Nightshade, the dark elf known as the Shadowblade, moved with lethal grace, her twin daggers slicing through the air. "Reinforcements have arrived!" Gideon's voice boomed, rallying Timothy's team. Azura's eyes gleamed with determination as she joined the fray. Hold on a little longer. We'll clear these monsters. The sight of the S-rank adventurers invigorated Timothy's group. With renewed strength, they fought alongside their saviors, pushing back the horde. Gideon's warhammer crushed skulls and shattered bones, while Azura's daggers danced with deadly precision, cutting down enemies with fluid ease. The battle turned in their favor as the monsters were driven back, their numbers dwindling rapidly. Timothy, Gareth, Jason, Cecilia, and Theodore fought with all their might, inspired by the presence of the legendary adventurers. As the last of the monsters fell, the dungeon fell silent, the echoes of battle fading into the distance. Gideon and Azura stood amidst the carnage, their expressions resolute. Timothy approached them, his sword lowered in gratitude. "Thank you. We wouldn't have made it without you." Gideon nodded, his face stern. "We need to understand what's causing these anomalies. This isn't the first time a dungeon has changed like this." Azura sheathed her daggers, her eyes sharp. "We'll find out. But for now, let's get you all out of here." With the immediate threat neutralized, the group began their journey back to the Adventurers Guild, their spirits lifted by the timely arrival of their saviors. Yet, the mystery of the dungeon anomalies loomed large, a challenge that would require all their skills and courage to unravel. Welcome back, Gideon and Azura. Chapter 19. The Grand Summit. The Grand Summit was an event of unparalleled significance, gathering the most influential leaders from across Tiamat in the opulent Grand Hall of the Dranosis Kingdom. The room was a marvel of architecture, with towering pillars adorned with intricate carvings depicting historical events, and a magnificent chandelier that cast a golden glow over the assembly. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as the leaders of the 5 human kingdoms, the 3 elven kingdoms, the 2 dwarven kingdoms, representatives from the United World Government, UWG, and the 3 cultivation sect masters convened to discuss the alarming issue of dungeon anomalies. The sight of the assembled royalty and leaders was a spectacle to behold. Each figure exuded an aura of authority and elegance, their presence commanding respect and attention. At the center of this gathering was King Thalander Eloria of the High Elves. His ethereal appearance, with skin like white silk and ash-silver hair, made him seem almost otherworldly. His royal attire shimmered with a concentration of pure natural mana, and his piercing eyes radiated a proud and grand demeanor that left an indelible impression on all present. In stark contrast, the kings of the Dwarven Kingdoms, King Thorgar Iron Fist and King Rurik Thunderaxe, appeared grumpy and rugged. Their preference for the mines and disdain for the presence of the elves were palpable. King Thorgar's stern expression and King Rurik's impatience were evident as they reluctantly participated in the summit. King Thranduil Greenleaf, the noble ruler of the Wood Elves, sat serenely, exuding a deep connection to nature. His gentle smile and the butterflies that fluttered around him gave him an aura of tranquility and wisdom, reminiscent of a forest dryad. Beside him, King Zephyrian Nightshade of the Dark Elves emanated a shadowy presence. His enigmatic demeanor and strategic mind were well known, and despite his apparent boredom, his sinister aura commanded a certain fear and respect. The 5 human kings, each displaying a domineering aura, contributed to the intense anticipation that filled the hall. Their presence was a testament to the gravity of the situation. Representing the UWG were Henry McLaren and Captain Rudy Jenkins, whose arrival in Tiamat coincided with the onset of the dungeon anomalies, fueling speculation and debate among the leaders. The first to speak was Roland Silverhand, the guild master of Laurencia's Adventurers Guild. He stepped forward, his voice steady but laced with concern as he recounted the harrowing experience of his adventurers. "My fellow leaders," he began, "we have encountered a disturbing trend. An F-rank dungeon, initially deemed harmless, escalated to a B-rank threat, nearly costing the lives of our adventurers. This is unprecedented." The room fell silent as Roland continued. A similar incident occurred during Captain Rudy's team raid. What began as a normal low-rank raid turned perilous, as the monsters grew in power and size the deeper they ventured. These anomalies are not isolated incidents. We must determine the cause and address it swiftly. King Thorgar Iron Fist grumbled, "This is troublesome. Our people rely on accurate dungeon rankings to gauge their safety. If we cannot trust these assessments, we are placing our warriors in grave danger." King Thalander Eloria nodded in agreement, his voice smooth and commanding. "We must investigate these anomalies with utmost urgency. Our realms depend on the stability of these dungeons." The fluctuations in their rankings pose a threat to our collective security. Queen Alara Iron Fist added, "It is also imperative that we consider the possibility of external interference. The timing of these anomalies coincides with the arrival of our esteemed guests from the UWG." Henry McLaren, sensing the tension, stood up. "We understand your concerns. The UWG is committed to collaborating with the leaders of Tiamat to resolve this issue. Our presence here is not a coincidence, but we assure you we are here to help, not hinder." Captain Rudy Jenkins stepped forward. "Our investigation into the dungeon anomalies is ongoing. We believe there might be a connection to the recent shifts in mana patterns across Tiamat. We request your cooperation in sharing any relevant data that could aid our research." King Rurik Thunderak's voice boomed. "We dwarves have long relied on our knowledge of the earth and its energies. If there are shifts in mana patterns, we will know it. Let us pool our resources and expertise to uncover the truth." Sect Master Hiroshi of the Divine Sword Sect, known for his stern discipline and mastery of the blade, interjected. "We must consider that these anomalies might be an omen of a greater threat. My sect has detected unusual fluctuations in spiritual energy. This could be a prelude to something catastrophic." Sect Master Gajira of the Drifting Cloud Sect, a master of ethereal arts and illusion, nodded in agreement. "Indeed. Our meditations have revealed disturbances in the balance of the elements. This is not a natural occurrence. We must be vigilant." Sect Master Tianzuan of the Kunglan Sect, renowned for his profound wisdom and control over qi, added, "The harmony of our world is at stake. These anomalies disrupt the very essence of our existence. We must investigate all possibilities, including the role of our new visitors." King Thranduil Greenleaf of the Wood Elves voiced his thoughts. "The timing of the UWG's arrival cannot be a mere coincidence. Their story of being from the surface world and Tiamat being a subterranean world does not align with what we know. Tiamat has its own sun and moons, complete with constellations in the sky. It is more plausible that the UWG came from a different world entirely, not bound to a single planet." This statement raised eyebrows and murmurs among the leaders. The implications were profound. King Zephyrian Nightshade of the Dark Elves voiced his skepticism. "Interdimensional travel has not been possible since the extinction of the world trees of Yggdrasil. We have had no visitors from other realms until the emergence of the so-called surface dwellers. How can we be sure they are not the cause of these anomalies?" King Thalander Iloria proposed a solution. "To find answers, we must investigate the adamantium tunnel where the surface dwellers first emerged. I propose that Archmage Irinder Silverbloom accompany the UWG representatives. His wisdom in our ancient past may uncover vital clues." The leaders nodded in agreement. The proposal was sensible and promised a collaborative approach to the mystery. As the meeting concluded, the leaders formed their own social groups, discussing the countless possibilities and reasons behind the anomalies. Henry and Rudy began their discussions on what to do next. It was evident that their arrival had something to do with the changes happening in Tiamat. Henry reflected, "It's possible we didn't just bore a tunnel to Tiamat. We might have been teleported here. But that doesn't explain how the tunnel remained intact for our representatives to follow." Rudy added, "Remember when the radar of the World Piercer malfunctioned? The same thing happened to our expedition vehicles. There must be something at the tunnel site that can give us answers." With a renewed sense of purpose, they prepared for their investigation, hoping to uncover the truth behind the dungeon anomalies and their connection to Tiamat. The Grand Summit had ended, but the quest for answers had only just begun. Chapter 20. Ancient Secrets Revealed. Preparations were swiftly made following the Grand Summit, with the leaders of Tiamat returning to their respective territories. A specialized team was assembled to investigate the adamantium tunnel. Archmage Irinder Silverbloom, Henry McLaren, Adrian, Jelani, Georgia, and Ryodan, accompanied by the Thunder Knight S-rank adventurer Gideon Stormbreaker, Captain Darian, and his knights. Their journey back to the adamantium tunnel was fraught with peril. Divine beasts, including wyverns and earth dragons, inexplicably attacked their group, as if driven by an unseen force. The once serene landscapes now bore the scars of devastation. Villages belonging to the Beastmen tribe lay in ruins, their homes reduced to smoldering remains, and the air thick with the acrid scent of destruction. Gideon surveyed the devastation, his expression grim. "This is no ordinary attack," he muttered, eyes scanning the horizon for any further threats. In all my years as an adventurer, such occurrences signal the impending doom of a monster tide. Sacred beasts leaving their domain and villages being ravaged by deranged monsters. This can only mean one thing. As they pressed on, they encountered several villagers who had managed to escape the onslaught. Their clothes were torn, and their faces were marked by fear and desperation. "Please help us!" One of the villagers cried, a young woman clutching a small child to her chest. "Our village was destroyed, and many of our people are still trapped." Captain Darian, maintaining his composure, shook his head. "I'm sorry, but we have a mission to complete. We cannot afford any delays." Jelani stepped forward, her expression filled with empathy. "We can't just leave them like this," she argued. "These people need our help." Darian's face hardened. "Our orders are clear. We must investigate the tunnel and report back. We can't be sidetracked." Jelani clenched her fists, struggling with the decision. Finally, she sighed. "I promise we will send help as soon as we can. Just hold on a little longer." Captain Darian, recognizing the gravity of Jelani's words, turned to his men. "We must inform the Adventurers Guild immediately. They need to prepare for a possible monster tide and bring aid to the affected villagers." "Sir Darian, that won't be necessary," Georgia interjected, her voice calm yet authoritative. Gideon and Darian exchanged confused glances. "Why not?" Darian asked, a hint of shock in his voice. "Wasn't this a matter of utmost urgency?" Henry stepped in to explain, "Georgia has the capability to send long-distance messages instantaneously through her high-speed connection. The smart tablet given to Archmage Aloan will receive the message almost immediately." Irinder's eyes widened in astonishment. "You mean to say she can communicate over such distances in an instant? How is this possible?" Georgia displayed her advanced interface, projecting a holographic screen. "With this device, I can relay messages through electromagnetic waves, allowing for instant communication regardless of distance." Gideon, Irinder, and the knights watched in awe as Georgia composed the message, detailing the need for aid, the potential monster tide, and the sightings of divine beasts. Moments later, the confirmation of receipt was displayed on her screen. "This technology is remarkable," Irinder admitted, his voice filled with wonder. "It surpasses even the most advanced magical communication we possess." Adrian nodded, his respect for Georgia's capabilities evident. "It's a game-changer for coordination and response in emergencies." With this, aid was sure to come. Jelani explained that help was on its way. The villagers nodded, their eyes filled with a mixture of hope and despair. The team continued their journey, the weight of the villagers' plight heavy on their minds. As the team pressed on, the landscape continued to bear the grim signs of monster rampages. Despite the danger, the group remained resolute, their goal clear and their spirits unyielding. After several days of travel, they finally reached their destination. Hidden amidst dense vegetation, a massive hangar made of adamantium steel loomed before them, a relic of the UWG's initial exploration. The structure was both imposing and awe-inspiring, a testament to the advanced technology that had brought the surface dwellers to Tiamat. Gideon surveyed the hangar, his mind racing with questions and possibilities. "This place, it might hold the answers we seek." Henry, feeling the weight of their mission, nodded. "Let's hope it does. The fate of both our worlds might depend on it." As they prepared to delve into the depths of the adamantium tunnel, the team steeled themselves for whatever mysteries and dangers lay ahead. They walked into the tunnel, the air growing colder and the light dimming as they moved further from the entrance. "Keep your guard up," Gideon instructed. "We don't know what we might find in here." As they progressed, the tunnel opened up into a vast chamber, its walls lined luminous lights, and that seemed to be powered by nothing but a small amount of electricity. Walls that seemed to pulse with a faint, otherworldly energy. Irinder stopped, his eyes widening in recognition. This is a mana barrier," he said, his voice filled with awe. "But it's infused with the laws of space. The only known thing that had the laws of space was the world tree Yggdrasil." Georgia scanned the surroundings with her advanced sensors, projecting a detailed map of the area from her eyes. A three-dimensional model of the tunnel and its surroundings appeared before them. To their astonishment, the model showed the tunnel in stark isolation, surrounded by nothing but an endless void of darkness. Henry frowned, studying the projection. When the world piercer bore through, there was nothing but darkness. No earth material, no lava, no rocks. Just emptiness. Irinder, with a heightened sense of mana, took out a piece of paper and began to draw. He sketched the adamantium tunnel connected to a massive buildup of mana, condensed with spatial laws. Surrounding the tunnel was something that resembled a gigantic tree root. This, Irinder said, holding up his drawing, is a remnant of Yggdrasil. The tunnel connects to a vast reservoir of spatial mana, surrounded by what appears to be an ancient tree root. We are inside one of Yggdrasil's roots. The UWG representatives looked puzzled. What does this mean for us? Henry asked. Irinder took a deep breath before continuing. Tiamat is not a subterranean world as you thought. The surface dwellers entered one of the many space passages that Yggdrasil was connected to. In short, we've discovered a remnant of the world tree Yggdrasil, which allowed the UWG to travel across space and arrive in Tiamat. The revelation left everyone in stunned silence. The implications were vast and complex, raising more questions than answers. As they processed the information, the realization dawned on them that their journey had only just begun. The secrets of Yggdrasil and the true nature of Tiamat lay ahead, waiting to be uncovered.